This session is going to be recorded. I ask all of you to please remain on mute until you have any questions. And of course, you can put the questions in the chat. We have our counselor, Lavelle Kent, manning the chat. So feel free to put in any questions or comments that you want in there. We're going to introduce ourselves. So we'll have that. As you see, the agenda is there on your screen. We've got an introduction that we're doing, which is right now. Also, in the chat, there's a link to a Kahoot game. And we certainly invite you to play that. That is going to be our little segue into some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So go ahead, feel free, test your knowledge, see how you stack up. It's only 5 questions, so it won't take very long, but we'll do that. Then we'll come back and have a discussion around some public service announcements that really address the way in which the world has handled the AIDS crisis, how treatment is going, and how we can honor and support those who are still suffering with the AIDS, either the AIDS virus or the HIV virus as well. Once we finish up our discussion, then we'll go right into looking at some community resources that's been put together by one of our nurses at in the Wellness Center. And then we'll have some question and answers there as well at the end. But don't think you have to hold your questions till the end. All right. If you have them, put them on and put them on in the chat. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and introduce who's going to be giving you the information and knowledge today in our World AIDS Day, December 1st. So our presenters, we have, there we go. With our presenters, we have our 2 of our nurses. One of them is Nurse Arnita Shelton. Nurse Arnita, you want to say hi?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Glad to have you all here. I hope everyone is well. Everyone had a good Thanksgiving and that you're ready to be informed and learn more about AIDS, World AIDS Day. So get ready to be more informed. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Wonderful. And Nurse Arnita actually put together our community resources. So if you have any questions when we get to that point, feel free to ask them. I'm sure she's got some other knowledge that she that's just not included on the slide. All right.
Yes.
Our next presenter will be Nurse Ann Eric.
Yes.
Nurse
Hello,
Ann,
everyone.
you want to say hi?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am another one of the nurses at the Wellness Center. So I'm happy to be here. And I hope we'll have a good game going ahead.
All right. All right. And let's see. Then we have one of our counselors in the Wellness Center as well, Mr. Lavelle Kent. Lavelle, you want to say hello?
Absolutely. How's everybody doing out there? I hope wonderful and ready to participate in this wonderful program that we have today. And just so we can get a understanding of who's in our audience, if you are ready to hear some helpful information, please check number 1 in the chat for me to let me know that you're ready and to let us know that you're still there and you're live. Go ahead and put chat in the room, 1 in the chat for us, please. Okay. Yep, I'm seeing them. Okay, they're here. We're here. Thank you so much and welcome.
Excellent. Way to go. Way to go. Okay, so with that, I am Dr. Danielle, one of the other counselor in the Wellness Center, and so I will be moderating for you today. And so with that, let's go on. And if you haven't done the Kahoot game, please go ahead and click the link in the chat. And there's the game pin there too. And then we're going to go ahead and bring that up. Okay. So I am noticing, unfortunately, that my Kahoot is not loading. So I might have to come back to this bad boy. Yeah. And instead, we might take a look at one of our first videos. How about that? So I will cue that up. I'm hoping my internet is working well today. Let's see. Let me make sure that you all will be able to see so that I'll share my screen with you. Go. Nurse Ann, as I'm putting this together, if there are any facts you'd like to talk about, please go ahead while I'm setting this up. No need to wait.
Okay, well, I know that our Kahoot game is going to be discussing some of these things. So the things that we are going to end up talking about in our Kahoot game is what is World AIDS Day? So I'm not going to give that answer unless we have our Kahoot. We're going to talk a little bit about the resilience and impact, because we did say that is the theme for this year's World AIDS Day. We're going to talk about one of the opportunities to show your solidarity with millions of people living with HIV worldwide, and why we are wearing what we're wearing for our World AIDS Day. We'll also talk about receiving a diagnosis and the numbers of people in the United States, and also the numbers of people worldwide.
Okay, very good, very good. All righty, let's go ahead with our first video.
The average baseball stadium holds about 50,000 people, enough to fill a dance floor the size of a New York City block, or float down a river 53 miles long. It was also the number of people in the US who became HIV positive every year since 2003. Then, something happened. We said, enough is enough. Instead of waiting for a cure, we took action. We got tested and retested. We talked to each other. And we talked to healthcare providers about HIV prevention medicines and safer sex practices. We talked about STIs, condoms, and all the ways to help prevent infection. People living with HIV started treatment right away and stuck to it, which can prevent the spread of HIV through sex. And it worked. New infections went down, but we still have work to do. So let's all do our part and keep fighting. Because together, we can all help stop the virus. Find out what you can do at helpstopthevirus.com.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Would you like to pick up from there, Nurse Ann?
Well, I think the one thing that it does speak to is our actual motto for today, which is resilience and impact. So what we are talking about here in the video is an introduction to World AIDS Day and the fact that there has been changes and that it is because of resilience and impact. So the impact has made changes, and people are continuing to live with HIV. They're continuing to live a healthy life, and they're very resilient.
Excellent, excellent. And even though you talked about, you said, within the Kahoot game, the World AIDS Day would be explained. It isn't necessarily explained. So can you explain that for us?
Certainly. So, World AIDS Day began with the idea in August of 1987 by James W. Bunn and Thomas Netter, who were two public information officers for the Global Program on AIDS at the World Health Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. So that is when it began. And as we say, now we are in the year 2020, and we have a theme each year. And so communities around the world are celebrating with resilience and impact. The other thing that I mentioned was the reason that we're wearing red today, and that is an opportunity to show solidarity with millions of people living with HIV worldwide. Most people do this by wearing an HIV awareness red ribbon on that day, and the red ribbon has become an internationally recognized symbol for AIDS awareness, worn by people throughout the year in support of people living with HIV and remembrance of those who have died. The red ribbon has become an internationally recognized symbol, for AIDS awareness, worn by people throughout the year, again, in support of people living with HIV and in remembrance of those who have died.
Okay, so it's a twofold then. It's a memorial, but it's also paying homage to those who are still here, and the struggle that they've had in this fight.
Yes, that would be right. That would be correct. That would be the resilience and the impact. Yes.
Okay. So the Kahoot, excuse me, Nurse Ann, to deviate to let the audience know, the Kahoot link is now in the chat. Some of you were saying you couldn't see it, so we put it in there. Unfortunately, I'm having some difficulty bringing it up. So if you go to it, play it, and we'll be able to see the results from that. If I can bring it up during this time, I certainly will. But I definitely encourage you to go ahead and put your knowledge to the test, right? And if you listen closely, you'll hear Nurse Ann give some of the answers. So, Nurse Ann, you also talked about the time in which it's come. So we've been celebrating this for quite some time now.
Yes, really, we have.
I thought you said since 1980. What was it?
It was 1987. And if you think about
that's
it,
what I thought you said. Yeah.
Even then, the actual diagnosis of HIV and AIDS, was relatively new. I would have to say in the beginning 80s, it was really very unknown. I was working in a primary care center at the time, and we had young men that would come in and talk about the symptoms. And honestly, we didn't know anything about it. I was in Phoenix, Arizona at the time. I think if I had been in another location, it might have been different. But it was very early 1980s. I'd say around 82, 83. And even though there had been studies and there had been research already, predominantly it was coming from San Francisco. And even though I was on the West Coast, still, it didn't trickle down to the average doctor, the average clinic, probably not until the mid to later 80s. So I think that's why it was so important to actually start the awareness in 87, because medical community really, truly wasn't that familiar with it.
Yeah, yeah. So it actually was a grassroots effort. I remember being involved in it early on with marches and with activism to say, hey, there's something going on, because at first it was within communities that that we might consider marginalized, the communities within the LGBTQ community, and so the virus may not have been given the seriousness in which it needed at that time.
Yeah, I would agree, and again say it was really not known well. Yeah, that was what this program of becoming aware of it was, so that, as I say, it was not only introduced to the public but to the medical community as well.
Yeah, and so and certainly this question goes to you or Nurse Arnita, since you're both versed in this. When did it start to become more mainstream in terms of women and cisgendered individuals, or individuals who did not identify within the LGBTQ community?
Well, I have to believe, like with most things, it was probably there, but once again, it probably was not recognized. That would be my assumption. I don't really have the exact details as to when.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. So let's take a look at it in terms of some numbers. There are some individuals are still getting diagnosed. Can you talk about the diagnostic numbers?
Yes, our video stated that about 50,000 people are diagnosed a year, but there has been some changes. And again, we don't know when exactly that statistic was taken. But when you record statistics, it takes a while for them to actually be in print. And this is the statistic from 2018. That is the most recent one for the diagnosis of HIV infection in the United States by the HIV Surveillance Report. Even though the report was put out recently in 2020, it still has to really spend more time trying to calculate numbers. So it is a 2018 report. And actually, it is better than what we just heard on our initial video. And so we're estimating about 40,000 people receive an HIV diagnosis in the United States in 2018. So it is a bit better.
Okay. Yes, it is. It's going down.
Yes,
it's going down.
And I wanted to, go ahead, Ann. I'll come in when you finish.
No, I was just going to say, in worldwide statistic, I was just going to mention that it continues to be a serious health issue for parts of the world. And there are about 1.7 million new cases of HIV in 2018. So again, worldwide, we know that many places don't have the same ability to treat and get people
to test.
To test, to treat, or even to provide access to many of the preventative measures that we have. So you go ahead, Arnie.
Okay. Us speaking is reminding me of the same back in the day. We've come a long way, baby. And we have come a long way, baby, with this. And as Ann was talking about the treatment and everything, this is reminding me of the tracing like we're doing with the COVID. If someone is HIV, when I worked in the hospital when this really came out, that it was becoming more popular and more patients were being diagnosed. And we as the nurses could not tell, well, we could tell the patient, but we could not tell like maybe the patient's partner that the patient was HIV. It would be the responsibility of the person that's HIV to tell the partner or all the people that they have been with sexually. So that is another way that it was hard to keep up with the number of people that were HIV. Because even though the person knew they had it, they might not want to tell their partner or all the other people that they've been with. So that's another way that was kind of difficult. It's better now, but nobody could tell nobody you have it. It was up to the person. And that was very
Okay.
difficult because they might not want to tell 5 people that they have been with 10 people. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember, and DeVell, you may remember this as well, back in the day, the push about before you get intimately involved, have that talk about your sexual history, and how awkward that was. I remember speaking with people in counseling about that in terms of what do you say and how do you bring that up? And when is a good time to introduce, that without the relationship just falling to pieces? So I'm not sure if you've had that experience as well.
Yes, absolutely. And, what we find in nowadays times is that a lot of people are being a lot more proactive, and it is becoming a requirement now that, we put all cards on the table when, individuals are linking up together to, become an exclusive item. So, you want to talk about your past history. You want to talk about, I speak with a lot of students about make sure that you establish boundaries and communicate and advocate, for those boundaries, because you don't want to compromise your livelihood. You don't want to compromise your future. So yeah, absolutely. I remember back in the day, that was such an awkward and taboo to thing. And when we think about it now, it's mandatory, and so that just it just prompts me to ask the crowd, do you think it's important to communicate with partners and prospective partners about some of these things, yes or no? What you guys think? Uh-oh, I see a yes, and then I see
one
nothing.
yes. One lone yes. How about the rest of you? You really don't care, or that's a great question, DeVell. Is it still important to talk about where you've been or who you've been with?
Yeah. Okay. See some people coming around. There we go.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay. All righty. I told you my internet's slow here, so. Yes. All right.
You know what, Danielle? And
Yeah.
you know what, Danielle? I think it's safe to say that sometimes some of us, that's not what we're thinking about. And you know what? That may have been the past, but let's think about it now. There's nothing we can do about what we haven't done in the past and what we haven't thought about, but there's everything that we can do about going forward and making sure that everyone's on the same page. So if you haven't been thinking about it, and you know what, no harm, no foul, let's start thinking about it now. Let's start putting it into play now.
Good point. Right. Good point. And being realistic, even though we are in a pandemic, people are still getting together. So the issue of safety. Yeah. Yeah. Suddenly the X's are suddenly no longer an X, But again, it still keeps the same level of importance. Even now more so than ever, because now we're not just talking about something that can be sexually transmitted, but also something that can be transmitted through respiratory droplets. So you really have to be careful.
Absolutely.
Okay. Nurse Ann, we'll hear a little bit more from you in terms of maybe if you can talk about special populations that the virus has ravished, and then we can go to another video.
Certainly. Again, the quotes of 2018: the gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men account for 69% of all new HIV diagnoses in the United States. And in the same year, heterosexuals made up 24% of all HIV diagnoses. And if we look at HIV diagnoses by race and ethnicity, we see that Blacks/African Americans are most affected by HIV. In 2018, adult and adolescents, Black, again, I'm reading this from the statistics, African Americans accounted for 42% of all new HIV diagnoses. Additionally, Hispanics, again, /Latinos, are also strongly affected. They accounted for 27 of all new HIV diagnoses. So they're trying to identify those two groups. Again, they're using the terminology that would be used in a professional paper. So that's why I was reading, directly from what the statistics are. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So basically, the virus really affects people of color.
Yes, I would definitely say. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe when we look at the video, we might be able to glean as to why that is. And also maybe have a discussion when we come back in terms of what our audience thinks is driving that particular demographic.
That sounds great.
Okay. Let's pull up another video. Okay. And, feel free to speak. You don't have to have silent air. I'm doing this. Makes me nervous.
Absolutely. You all can come off mute if you have a question and you want to just make a comment. You can put something in the chat, or you can raise your hand like so and be acknowledged if you have any questions or concerns while we get things uploaded for you all. So I have a question while we wait. In the chat, if so far this has been some helpful information and insightful, can you put a 7 in the chat line for me? Excellent. And so Nurse Arnita and Nurse Ann, either one, I have a question. A lot of students in the past have raised this question, and I wanted to know what you all thought about it. Some people feel that HIV and AIDS is only contracted if you live a certain lifestyle, whether it's a drug lifestyle or a promiscuous kind of lifestyle. Is contracting those diseases exclusive to that narrow type of lifestyle?
I would have to say that that isn't the case because, again, according to statistics, heterosexuals, homosexuals, different lifestyles, some of the things that you've mentioned, yes, it seems to be pretty broad. Again, I think initially those were the things that were believed. They were also what was studied. But I think now that there's much more available, and it's certainly needed to diagnose, because we know pregnant women, they certainly have had HIV, and the concerns, of course, would be for the unborn child. And there's so much treatment today, and it's made such a huge difference. So we're very fortunate for all that.
Yes, I'm glad you. Yeah, I'm glad you. I was gonna bring this up later. Yes, I was gonna bring this up later, but I didn't know we were going to discuss it in the video. But sexually is not the only way that you can get HIV or AIDS. So another way is IV drug abuse. Well, basically bodily fluids. So IV drug abuse is another way. When you do shoot up with the needles, like if I shoot up with a needle and I have HIV, and then another person shoots up with my needle and they shoot up in their arm, then they possibly will have a big possibility that they will have HIV because it's being transmitted via the blood and bodily fluids. And also, when Ann was mentioning about the pregnancy, breastfeeding, like when I used to do mother baby labor and delivery, we would have mothers that were that had HIV, and we would and on that note, also we would treat the baby right away. We would not wait till they were 7, 8 years old to do a test. We would just give them the medication as newborns until we did the test and we got the results. But we would encourage the mother not to breastfeed because of the breast milk transmission, it being a bodily fluid from the mother to the baby. So any bodily fluid, like HIV and mother, baby, breast milk from mother to baby are other ways that it could be transmitted from person to person.
Okay.
And that
Okay.
baby weight was really something because if the mother was a known, really we knew that she was HIV. As I stated, we would test the baby, but we would not want to wait for results. So we would just give the baby the medication. And sometimes that was tricky because we couldn't have the medication in the medicine drawer where visitors would be going through their little cart and see, oh, why the baby taking this? And then the mother would have to start talking. So it was a lot to that. That was another way. Like you have to be really careful. Nobody else finds out except for through the mother or the parent if you wanted to let someone else know. He had all kind of little things going on. So that's another thing you have to think about. It's very important not to let other people know unless that's what you want them, unless you want them to know.
Yeah.
Correct. And actually, isn't that what HIPAA is about?
That's HIPAA.
But please go on, Devel. You were saying.
No, I was just going to say, that's why it's just so important that we have continued programming like this, because the unfortunate part is there are a lot of individuals out here that are miseducated due to myths, where they think that there's only one or two ways to contract. There is myths about whether things are considered a death sentence or not. What treatment looks like, what life looks like, what type of demographic of an individual that is impacted, what type of programs are out there. So it's just important that, we continue programming like this, because some people may share or not share that they don't have the adequate information, and it's just it's up to us to just help educate one another. So I just I'm just grateful just to be here, receiving education, giving education, and just celebrating resilience and looking at how we can be impactful, not only just on our campus but in our community.
Yes.
All right. Okay, let's go ahead with the video.
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun. You good, Deval? If not, I got it again.
The average baseball stadium holds about 50,000 people, enough to fill a dance floor the size of a New York City block, or float down a river 53 miles long. It was also the number of people in the US who became HIV positive.
Oh, sorry, that was the wrong one.
If you're living with HIV, you may wonder
Oh, that was fine.
about HIV treatment as soon as possible. And what does treatment actually do for me? Actually,
Sorry, having technical difficulties. Okay, I think we're good now.
many treatment options are available, and most are made up of 3 different medicines, which can even be in a single pill. Together, they can fight HIV in more than one way. Plus, taking HIV treatment every day helps make sure there's always enough medicine in your body to fight the virus. And that helps make it possible to live a longer and healthier life. Now, here are 5 reasons to stick with treatment. It all starts here with the most important reason of all: less virus in your body. Left untreated, the amount of HIV in your body, your viral load, goes up. Taking HIV treatment helps bring it down, and sticking with treatment helps keep it down. It can get so low, it can't be measured by a test. That's undetectable. You still have HIV, but there's a lot less of it causing damage in your body. And a lower viral load means a lower chance of developing certain infections, some cancers, and AIDS. And when you're undetectable, that brings us to number 2. Protect your partners. Taking HIV treatment every day means you can get to and stay undetectable. And that prevents the spread of HIV through sex, according to current research. It's called treatment as prevention. But think of it as treat to prevent. It's a big deal. But HIV is still in your body, and being undetectable doesn't prevent other sexually transmitted infections. So be safe and use condoms. Now, on to number 3, more CD4 cells. Taking HIV treatment as prescribed helps restore your body's defense network, your immune system. Inside your body are CD4 cells, the cells that defend against germs. But HIV invades CD4 cells. It takes over and uses them to make more HIV. Pretty soon, there's lots of HIV and not enough CD4 cells. HIV treatment helps keep this from happening. It raises the number of CD4 cells, so you have more of them to defend against things that can make you sick. Sound good so far? Well, here's number 4. Less virus can mean less inflammation. Now, inflammation is something you can't always see, but it's part of your body's normal healing process. It's usually short term, and typically, it's a good thing. But here's what it means when you're living with HIV. Because the virus is always in your body, it can cause long-term inflammation if left untreated, and that's a bad thing. It puts constant stress on your immune system, and it can lead to serious diseases and cancers. But taking treatment can help lower your viral load, and that helps reduce inflammation. Which brings us to number 5, avoid resistance. Because a durable HIV treatment helps keep the virus from getting sneaky. See, if you're not taking a treatment that's right for you, or if you don't take your treatment every day, the level of medicine in your body may not be enough to keep HIV from changing. It can become resistant to your treatment, which means your treatment may not work as well to fight HIV. And resistance can make HIV harder to treat, now and in the future. But if your treatment is ready to fight back and you take it exactly the way your healthcare provider says, it helps keep your treatment working the way it should. So there you have it. 5 really important things that taking an effective treatment does for you. Remember, there is no cure for HIV, but sticking with treatment means you're protecting your health, and it helps make it possible to live a longer and healthier life. Questions? Talk to a healthcare provider. Plus, you can get more information and watch more videos at helpstopthevirus.com and on YouTube. So stick with treatment and help stop the virus.
Excellent. Thank you, Deval. Thank you. So, before we transition back to Nurse Ann, any comments about that particular public service announcement? Any questions about what is really treatment? Did he say that the viral load can be undetectable and therefore you wouldn't transmit it? Do you have any questions like that? Bring them forth. Bring them forth. That video had a lot of information, even things that I didn't necessarily know. So if you learn something in it, what do you say, Devel? What number haven't you used? 4? Put a 4. Put a 4 if you learned something from that particular video or it made you think about something.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'll tell you myself, the piece about the inflammation was a piece of information that I didn't know. And so I was educated on, just the correlations between the inflammation and other things and how it could exacerbate the current condition. So I definitely learned something there with the inflammation piece.
Definitely. And it looks like our audience took something away from it too. So fantastic. Nurse Ann, you did a wonderful job in putting together these public service announcements. They're so informative, and they really dovetail on the things that we want to get across to the audience today. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that treatment piece?
Well, I just wanted to encourage people to go to that website, stopthevirus.org. There is so much there. I was only choosing 3 out of many, videos, and I was trying to highlight what we did, the actual problem, the actual treatment, and then we really have a very good one for someone who has it and someone you could get in touch with because he gives all his information in terms of a public service, his ID public service wise. So I think those were the 3 highlights, but there's so many more, so much more at that website that you can learn.
Excellent. That's a great resource, stopthevirus.com. And Devel went ahead and put the link right in the chat so that you can, our audience members can have it at their leisure and take a look at it when they're able. Fantastic. So let's see. Nurse Ann, I think you have a little bit more information to tell us in terms of how AIDS and HIV varies by age.
Well, my statistics do indicate that younger people certainly are being diagnosed and affected by HIV, and they account for 21% of all new HIV diagnoses. All young people are not equally at risk. So gay, young, and bisexual men account for 83% of all new HIV diagnoses in people aged 13 to 24. So like I said, when we were talking about starting this program, that it is very humbling to hear such a young age. And that was concerning to me when I saw that statistic.
Yeah. Devel or Nurse Arnita, do you have any comments about that before we transition into looking at community resources?
No, yeah, like Ann said, the younger people, their numbers are really up, and older people, I haven't seen when I worked in the hospital, I haven't seen a lot of older, middle-aged people with AIDS, because usually by that time they have known probably that something was wrong by some of the symptoms that they might have had, so they've been to the doctor. But usually it is the younger people, and they are getting younger. Unfortunately.
And I was just going to add that I was just going to add that, the change in age range is just another testament to the fact that we just have to be more educated. And, when we are not as educated, then we'll start seeing shifts in ranges and we'll start seeing, different numbers. I remember before, the increased numbers was between 13 to 24, that there was the 65 and older population that was high risk. And I remember working in community
High risk, that's
psychiatry,
right.
and I had some elderly clients that believe that because they were the age that they are, they could have unprotected sex with younger partners and not contract the disease. And we had to have some real conversations, and we had to break the stats out, and we had to just be preventative and give some education to being a lot more safer. So it just speaks to that point that we just really need to educate our community much more.
Mm, mm. And to your point about educating the community, on your screen are now some community resources that Nurse Arnita put together that highlight treatment as well as testing, as well as general information. Nurse Arnita, would you like to speak to the community resources you gathered? You may be speaking, but you may be on mute.
I was sorry.
That's all right.
The one
That's
in
all right. So I'm not sure. Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can. I want to
Great. All
speak.
right. Go right ahead.
I want to speak to the one in the dark blue that says "Heart to Hand." They were one of the services that actually came to Prince George's college and did HIV testing. Well, I think it was once or twice a week, once or twice a month. And I called Conchita. She is the director, to make sure they were still doing it. Because one thing about the resources nowadays, when we do anything, we have to call them to make sure that they are even still in business, not in business, but still even working, or how they are. Because a lot of resources are working because of the COVID, because of the pandemic. So Conchita told me to make sure to call her, that they can even come to your home and do testing. So that's the one that
Wow.
I spoke with her last week. That's the one that says "Heart to Hand." She says call her, that they are still working. One of those numbers
Okay.
is her cell. I'm sorry, it's the office number, and one is a more personal number that you can get to her. But she said yes, please call her, that they are still working. And PG,
And
I even
and
had to
that's
call.
for HIV and AIDS testing.
Yes,
Heart to
Heart
hand.
to hand.
Okay. All right.
And the PG Health Department, I called them to make sure that they're still going. I think that's their main number, because they did not. The PG Health Department has various departments for all kind of things. So that's their main number, and just ask for the HIV STD clinic, and they can advise that. And the Center for Disease Control is like the dictionary of everything. They know they do testing for everything. So that's a good number for them and a good resource, because they actually go through every STD, go into detail, gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia. So they're a good resource also. So those three are very good. But make sure to call Conchita. She's waiting for you. That's the Heart to Hand. And that Stop the Virus was a
Okay.
good.
Excellent.
That was a good one too. That Stop the Virus .org. They had a lot of good information. So the information is out here. You gotta read it. It takes time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And now, if you all don't mind, there's a poll up here for you to check out. Do you mind taking our poll here? Excellent. Folks are coming in. Very good. Very good. Thank you. Okay, very nice. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
your responses.
And it's
Alrighty, I'll
anonymous.
give it.
It's anonymous. So just go ahead and just give us that feedback. It helps us grow a more
That's true. It is anonymous.
interactive, robust programming for you all.
That's true.
So everyone's insight is needed. So please, we got 7 more responses out there.
Okay, very good. So you found it helpful. Alrighty. And let's see. Very good. Let's go ahead and show this so folks can see. Oh, you can see it. Okay. Very good. Okay, Javelle, you talked it up. They're all right. We're getting everybody to respond. That's wonderful. Should have said, help us get a raise. All right. Thank you so much for your responses. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Okay, so this is where we open it up for any other questions. Devel, you're checking the chat, I see. And if there are any questions in the chat or if anyone wants to come off mute, please do so. And then certainly Nurse Ann or Nurse Anita, if you have any final comments, please go ahead and give them.
I wanted to speak of something about the medication. I remember when I worked in the hospital, they would, oh my goodness, I know I would give some people, depending on their viral load and what the numbers were, I would be giving up to 5 pills, and they would be big pills. And most of the time they would throw them right up because they don't have an appetite, and they would take the pills and throw up. When I left the hospital, they were having a lot of them were just taking one, which we called the combo. And it was one big, still big, but it was one pill that would that we would give. So I wanted to remind people if they are HIV or have AIDS, to just please take your medicine, because it's not going to go away. I mean, if you take like birth control, you can't just take one and skip a day and don't expect you not to be pregnant. So you have to take your medication as prescribed, because that's very important. I mean, we've had people that say, "Oh my," and it is true, their stomach is upset quite a bit, but we would give Zantac or something to help cover. But and if you're having a problem with taking it, please let your doctor know. Just don't stop taking it. And think that you would get better.
Okay.
Oh, I see a question. Did you meet?
Go right ahead.
Yes. Did you meet anyone that was so sick they passed away? And unfortunately, I met quite a few. By me being a nurse in the hospital, and our unit that I worked on, we had a lot of HIV patients, and I would take care of them one day and come back, and they would say, "Arnita, guess who died?" And I mean, you get attached to them. They're there a while. They're there a long time. They're usually there sometimes when they find out, and then they will be, because they were too weak to be able to go home and to take care of themselves. So unfortunately, yes, I met a lot of people that died.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
In terms, I haven't the individuals that I've counseled who did have HIV or AIDS. I didn't stay with them long enough to see them pass away. So that was really good. There was a gentleman who had been living with AIDS for about 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
An older gentleman, of course, by this time, and he really talked about the losses that came as a result of having this disease, the losses of his friends in terms of their lives, the loss of the livelihood, being able to be outgoing and working and having a social life and things of that nature. At some point, the disease can impact that. And so therapy really resolved around helping him to accept what is now, and also his impending mortality, because he did realize the end was coming.
Yes. And then on that note, Danielle, what you're saying about people, when if they do find out, a lot of people, they don't be around you because of the myths
No.
that they have, because of the myths that they have, like they if you eat that you can't eat behind them, you can't use the same fork they use, you can't go to the bathroom. Those are some of the myths that are out here. So a lot of my patients didn't have visitors because they didn't want to be around them anyway. Not all of them, but some of them, because that's
Yeah.
the education again. They didn't understand, how they possibly could get it, and that they couldn't get it by just talking to you or looking at you.
By
That's
just,
not
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. A hospital visit is not a death sentence.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. All right. Thank you for the last question of the poll. And looks like we're about split here. And this is wonderful because what this tells me is, or what this tells us, is that even though this topic didn't touch you personally, you still had an interest in it, which means that's good for our community. Because the more, as DeVell was saying, the more folks who are educated, the more we can eradicate this, and the more that we can learn and actually know the facts around this. So I'm actually encouraged by the responses of this poll. I see a few folks still wanted to be heard, put their voice. So I'm going to close it out in about 5 seconds. So if you have want something in there, please do. DeVell, are there any more questions in the chat? And I'll go ahead and close this out.
There are no more questions, but a while back there was
Okay.
there was a comment that I think is very noteworthy, and it says,
Okay.
I'm sorry, someone just asked a question. Did the meeting start? This meeting started at 12:30. No, actually, it started at 1:30. Our time frame was actually 1:30 to 2:30. For the person that asked that question. And the other thing that I want to say is Ashley had made a great statement, and she said, I think it's great that we have come so far with medicine to help people. And that's so accurate, and
Yes.
there is a lot of advances in medicine that we see nowadays that back in 87 we didn't see so much. So I wholeheartedly agree with that statement, and it is wonderful and amazing. There are multiple options now.
Yes. Okay, very good. All right. Well, with that brings us to the end of our program today. I definitely want to thank mostly our participants. Thank you all who came. We are so appreciate you coming to learn about this information and help us celebrate and honor those who are affected by HIV and AIDS. So thank you, PGCC students, staff, and faculty. Also, thank you to our nurses, Nurse Ann and Nurse Arnita. Thank you so much for your the knowledge you shared, the experiences you shared as well. Couldn't have done it without you. And in fact, you two were the driving force in wanting to do this program. So thank you so much for pushing this on this particular day. And then also extending a great thank you to DeVell, my counterpart. Thank you so much for helping with the chat, helping with the technology, and just providing overall general support and comments as you do so well.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Of course. Of course.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. You're welcome. So with that said,
And you
I'm
know
going to
what,
stop the
Danielle?
recording. Oh, yes.
No, I just wanted to let the audience know that Be on the lookout for our spring semester programming. We have a host of wonderful programming that ranges a lot of different topics, not just behavioral health and mental health, but physical health, social health. It's a lot of different things we got out there. So just be on the lookout for it. And we're bringing programs to you. And thank you all for coming again. Truly appreciate you.
Excellent. Excellent.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's a plug. That's a
Mhm.
great plug. All right. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. I'm going to stop the
Bye-bye.
recording and go ahead and end. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.